Good evening, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode of On the FinSide with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the FanSided Network and FinFanatic.com. The Dolphins play the Browns here at noon Central, 1 Eastern, here in Miami. We are lucky to be joined here by KFC, Christian from the Getting Down with the Browns podcast. Follow them on Twitter, DWTB, and follow Christian, KF Christian _ on Twitter as well. Christian, thanks for joining us here to help preview the Browns Dolphins game.
Well, thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, looking at an interesting offseason, to say the least, for the Browns.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson gets suspended. We don't have to get into all that, but he is coming back here in 3 games. And, I don't have to tell you, it started to look like the Browns season was spiraling out of control. They got off to a 2-5 start. They lost 4 in a row. At least I thought, no offense, they were going to get steamrolled by the Bengals on Monday night. And it turned out to be the opposite. They ended up winning 32-13. So, what's kind of the feeling there among Browns fans heading into this game?
It's a little bit of mixed because, you've got the Browns fans that have been hurt for so long because, the Browns are the Browns, the saying. You got some people like me that are a little bit more optimistic because, we saw what we did against the Bengals. And I think that the momentum's starting to click and the defense is finally starting to click there. And that's just kind of what we've been missing, is that just unity on the defense and unity on the offense, because it feels like the offense would play a perfect game. Going back to the Jets game week 2, they play a perfect game offensively. Then defense, they're letting 30 points up to Joe Flacco. You're like, man, come on, get it together. And it looked like they finally got it together against the Bengals. So I think that momentum's starting to build.
Certainly.
Positive.
Certainly. And, 3-5, and then they have a bye week this past week. So they're all rested up. They have 2 weeks to prepare for the Dolphins. And the following week they play at Buffalo. So, is do or die a fair saying here in this game?
Over these next 3 weeks, we actually talked about this on Getting Down with the Browns last week. We talked about they've got to at least go 2-1 out of these next 3 games, because you've got Miami this Sunday, Buffalo the next week, and then the Buccaneers, and then you get Deshaun back. You got to at least go 2-1, 3-0, getting back Watson. That's the only way.
Absolutely, because and then it would be you're talking 5-6, and then the Browns would still have to go on a run at the end of the year there, but it's not a terribly tough schedule. You've got the Texans in that first game against with Deshaun Watson back.
Yep.
You've got the Bengals, the Ravens, and then the last 3 games, the Saints at home, at Washington, and at Pittsburgh. So, and I've got to be honest with you, given that we're both in the AFC, this is a chance for the Dolphins to take the Browns and put them in their rearview mirror. But if they don't, the Dolphins can go 7-3 in this game, and then they've got a bye week, and then they've got the Texans. So we're going to assume they're going to go 8-3, or else none of this is worth talking about.
Yeah.
But if the Browns go 4-5 here, like you talked about, they're on the verge of turning the season around. But looking at your offense here now, Jacoby Brissett obviously was with Miami last year. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a lot of Dolphins fans that think a lot of him, but pretty decent season so far from him. 163 for 255, 1,862 yards, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, quarterback rating of 86.5. What's been the overall impression here of Brissett for the Browns?
He's been a lot better than expected. As weird as it sounds, a lot of Browns fans, once we heard that it was going to be 11 games for Watson, they're like, all right, just go ahead and tank the season. Just go ahead and just throw all expectations out the window. And then we start 2-1 with Brissett. And we're like, okay, this guy's what we thought Baker could be. Because, last year, Baker's left a real sour taste in everybody's mouth. And now you get a guy in that actually listens to Stefanski, and you see Jacoby Brissett, and he's putting up solid numbers for what he's doing. Nobody really expected him to actually go out there and compete like he has. So it's kind of awesome to see on behalf of Brissett.
Absolutely. And I'm sure another guy that's awesome to see is Nick Chubb, who even with a bye week, I think he's second in the league in rushing, just behind Derrick Henry. 841 rushing yards. So in 8 games too. So over 100
Yeah.
yards a game, 5.6 yards a carry. And then you got Kareem Hunt too, is no slouch. Over 300 yards rushing on the season. I mean, I don't think I'm breaking news saying the Browns are a run first team. They're going to try to punch you in the mouth. Do you think that's going to be the strategy in this game too?
Yeah, I mean, Stefanski, like he may open up like with a little play action here and there, but I mean, the main focal point of the Browns offense is Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt getting that running game going. And most of the time, what I like to see is they'll do like a little misdirection. Chubb will kind of start off going to the right and he'll cut back left, and then you'll see Wyatt Taylor or whoever's playing the right guard pull and make a lead block. That is when I know it's going to be a beautiful play. Every time, it's like one of the most effective plays that the Browns got in the playbook. And it's just, I think that's a lot of why Nick Chubb has as many yards as he does. Because I mean, once he gets out from behind the line, dude, he might take it to the house.
Yeah, and they easily have the best offensive guard combination in the league with Batonio and Wyatt Teller. I know when they signed Teller to a contract extension, I think it was last year,
Mm-hmm.
for a lot. I mean, I was looking at it, I was like, do you really want to pay two offensive guards 14 or 15 million a year? Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
With how they play. And they're every bit the reason there why Nick Chubb, in addition to Chubb, why they're able to do so well on the ground. At the tackle spots, I'm interested to get your opinion here because Jedrick Wills is a player that after the Dolphins drafted in 2020, drafted him 5th overall. Wills was the guy I wanted them to come back up and get if they were to trade back up. He goes to the Browns.
Yeah.
How's he been so far in his development?
So he had an all right rookie year. And then his second year, he was hurt a lot of it, so he didn't really have that good. I think he's had a fantastic year this year. A lot of people don't, because I mean he'll have one good holding penalty on him that hurt you on the drive, but I mean that's just kind of Jedrick Wills. Like he'll get a false start or just a holding, and it's gonna happen once or twice every game. But honestly, man, he's held his own against some of the best defensive ends in the league, and I think he's gonna be a great left tackle. But like
Yeah,
I
and he was
said,
only 20. He's got to be. He was only 20 when drafted, I think. So he was only
I think
22,
he's
23.
20. I think he's 23 going on 24. So I mean, he's still, and I mean, he was a right tackle at Alabama. So we made him switch to the left tackle. And a lot of people, like, I mean, you can go through Browns Twitter and just all the Browns forums, and you'll see people bashing Jedrick Wills. But I think that's just more of an attest to how good the rest of the O-line is.
Right, absolutely.
So,
And on the other side, Jack Conklin, and we're recording this here on Thursday,
uh-huh.
almost Thursday evening. So the injury report, 2 days injury reports here. Jack Conklin also out of practice again here today. Right now, do you have a feeling whether or not he's going to play one way or another? Or is it still kind of wait and see?
He kind of sits a lot during the week because I mean he is very injury prone. But honestly, if he doesn't play, I'm not too worried because of James Hudson. James Hudson has came in when he's been out because Conklin didn't play the first few weeks this season. And when he had to step in, you really didn't miss a beat with him at right tackle. So I know this is a hot take and a little bit too early to say this, but I think Jack Conklin will not be a Cleveland Brown next year.
Okay, okay, that's something to look out for. I had my eye on Conklin for the Dolphins a couple years ago. He's coming up on 30, or maybe is he 2016? Yeah,
Yeah, he's coming up on 30.
Coming up on 30. Okay, so yeah, he does get hurt a lot. And James Hudson, a player out of Cincinnati, I liked a couple of years ago coming out. He's unexpectedly fell to the 4th round and has been able to kind of slow cook behind those two guys. And
Yeah.
now he's there at the right tackle spot. So that's interesting. Obviously the weapons, David Njoku had the injury. He's iffy for this game. Also did not practice, but he said he's going to play.
Yeah.
Usually when a guy says that, he usually backs it up,
Yeah.
barring a setback. So really 3 guys, it looks like, in the receiving game, Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and David Njoku. Is that pretty standard, or is there someone else we should expect?
that's pretty much all you really got to worry about, like receiving wise. I mean, you may have a few plays here and there with David Bell, maybe one or two to Harrison Bryant. That's all you really got to worry about.
Certainly,
So,
certainly. So if you're Stefanski and you're strategizing for this game offensively for the Browns, what's your game plan going up against the Dolphins here on defense?
like calling like the defense for the Browns or offense.
Yeah. Oh, what's the overall? Do you think the overall strategy for the Browns on offense is going to be? Do you
Oh,
think? Yeah, obviously they're going to run a lot. We know that.
yeah. I think that they'll keep the run game pretty simple, but I think Brissett might have a few extra passes this game. I know that the secondary of the Dolphins isn't the greatest. And Amari Cooper is one of the best route runners in the game. So I think that they'll try to get a heavy dosage of him. And if David Njoku is playing, I think you'll see a heavy dosage of Njoku too.
Yeah, and he's coming back to Miami to play. Went to college at the University of Miami, as you know, and Amari Cooper, yeah, 553 receiving yards on the year. And the last time he went up against Xavier Howard, he was a Dallas Cowboy, and it was one of Howard's worst games of his career. So, yeah, and the Dolphins secondary, really a bright spot heading into this year, but Byron Jones hasn't played. We don't expect him to be back. Brandon Jones, a huge weapon from the strong safety
Yeah.
position in blitzing. He goes down. Nick Needham, one of the better nickel backs in the league. So the Dolphins are missing 3 of their top 5 guys. Certainly has not helped the situation.
But you do have the new addition in Bradley Chubb, which is quite scary.
It is. It wasn't quite last week because Justin Fields was running all over the place. But yeah, on the defensive side of the ball there, yeah, that's going to be an interesting matchup with Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips going up against Jedrick Wills and either Jack Conklin or James Hudson. And it's also a fascinating matchup on the inside too. I mean, the Browns to me have one of the, if not the best run blocking offensive lines in the league. They're going up against a Dolphins run defense that to opposing running backs are allowing 3.59 yards a carry. So yeah, it's going to be a battle of the Titans there in the Miami Heat.
Yeah. Yeah, and one guy that's actually supposed to be coming back this week is actually Wyatt Taylor. He's actually been out for a few weeks. We've had Froholt playing right guard. So they're saying he's going to be back. And then Njoku, like you said, he said that he's going to be back. And Denzel Ward as well.
Yeah, I mean, those are huge ones to look out for. I mean, Denzel Ward, I did not know that Taylor's been out a couple of weeks. Denzel Ward, yeah, I did know that. That's a huge return there. So when the Dolphins go on offense and the Browns are on defense, we flip the field there. Obviously, you've got to start with Myles Garrett going up against Teron Armstead, which should be a great matchup. I have said many times, even during non-Browns week, Myles Garrett's the best defensive end in the league. 7.5 sacks this year. ESPN has him with the second best pass rush win rate. PFF has him as at number 1. So it doesn't really matter as much who he goes up against. He's going to be a handful. I'm curious about the rest of your defensive line because not a lot of names at the defensive tackle spot, and I can't notice Jadeveon Clowney's only played 190 snaps this year.
Yeah, he missed some games early on. He's back now because I know he got hurt against the Jets. He was going to get a tackle on Joe Flacco when he rolled out and kind of like he tweaked his leg, and then a few weeks later, I want to say against the Patriots, he like kind of retweaked it and then sat out. Nah, he's been back. I mean, he's been injury prone, most of his career. So, but other than Jadeveon Clowney, you really just got to focus on Myles Garrett. The defensive tackles, they really haven't been that great. But these past 2 games, I've not seen this defense play like they have. Like the last 2 games compared to the first 6, totally different. Like night and day.
Yeah, and you look at against the Bengals. Joe Mixon 8 carries for 27 yards. We saw what he did this past week. After he played the Bengals, they had 5 touchdowns. And I look at the the Browns run defense averaging 4.9 yards a carry on the ground. But I think Austin Eckler kind of skewed those statistics because he went off on them. And other than that, they haven't allowed a 100-yard running back. So,
Yeah.
I think the Dolphins can have some success running against the Browns here, but I also think their run defense statistics are a little bit misleading too.
Yeah, I think that I think Mostert he could have a really good game because the run defense has been kind of shaky. Um, it's but most of the time I feel like we're getting in like a shootout with the other teams. That's kind of what I feel like we're going like it's like head to head. We're seeing who the better quarterback is the past few games, but like I know Brissett's not that guy, but that's just kind of the mentality they're having. The shootouts.
I mean, a lot of high point totals for the Browns, which I didn't expect with Watson. I mean, 26 points in week 1, 30 in week 2, 29 in week 3, 28 against the Chargers in week 5, and then before the bye in week 8, 32. So the Browns, if you look at them on paper, you think a run first team, not going to score a lot of points on you, but you look at, 25 points per game on the nose, they can certainly put up some points.
Yeah, and that's what's been one of like my just like Kevin Stefanski, you are a great coach, like one of them top things. Like you're putting up 30 a game with a backup. That's how I'm looking at it. I'm like, if you can do that, just wait till you get your franchise quarterback in there.
That's exactly it. And I was jumping to the offensive side of the ball for a second, but going back to the defense, yeah, it when I look at the linebackers, I mean, it's a fascinating position on the team because the Usu Koromora, a player that I really liked in the draft here a couple of years ago, the undersized but very, very fast linebacker, is iffy for this game. Did not practice the last 2 weeks with an ankle injury. They also traded for Deion Jones, who had a big game against the Bengals. And Sione Taki, a massive game against the Bengals. So if you can get the 3 of these guys to line up, that's a pretty good trio and one that seems to cover a lot of ground there, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Sione Taki was just a freaking beast against the Bengals. I mean, I think there's a stat. I think every time Sione Taki forces a turnover, the Browns win. Like I don't know if that's a fact, but like I would like to say that is because I feel like every time he forces a turnover, the Browns win.
Yeah, I'm going to look into that. And if it's the first quarter and I see that happen, I'm going to get pretty worried. But Owusu Koromora, again, I don't mean to put you on the spot with injuries here, but if you had a feeling one way or another, do you think he suits up on Sunday? Feel free to punt it too.
I'm not for sure. Honestly, I've not really heard much on JOK. I know that it was kind of a shocking see him that he was out against the Bengals. I was like, oh man, like he's out. And it may be just one of them things like they're just trying to let him heal and then just kind of like, oh he's gonna play. Like maybe it's one of them things. Like I'm not for sure. I've not.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not either, and that's why I was asking you. And thanks for playing along there. But you look at the back 7, and that's going to be fascinating here with the Dolphins and the speed they bring at the running back spot, as well as Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki. As far as weapons, if they can line up these 3 linebackers with their secondary, it's a really fast back 7, as you know, with Denzel Ward coming back. I mean, they put a lot of stock into the cornerback spot, drafted Denzel Ward 4th overall a few years ago, and then spent top 50 picks on Newsome and Greedy Williams and Martin Emerson, who had a big game last week here too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious as far as the safety position goes. That's one where Grant Delpit and John Johnson. I mean, I watch them and I think it's a good combo, but are they beatable? I mean, as on the deep passes?
Yeah. Grant Delpit is on deep passes. Yeah, he's burnt toast. Like all you gotta do is you gotta just tell Tyreek find Grant Delpit and he's gonna burn him. Grant Delpit's more of a box safety. Like he needs to be up. Like he's like the guy that you send the blitz, the guy that could honestly, I think he should be playing linebacker. Like I think he could be a linebacker. Like I don't think he should be out there playing deep safety like we have been, but past few weeks we've been having him play inside and had Ronnie Harrison actually playing the deep safety with JJ3.
Got it. Yeah, and they'll be fascinating to watch because at cornerback they're really good, and yeah, and they can certainly run, especially if they've got those three linebackers on the field. We're joined by KFC, excuse me.
No, you're
Christian from the Getting Down with the Browns podcast. Join him at DWTB. And just a couple more questions here for you, Christian. Defensively, as far as how the Browns play defense, is it a lot more zone or a lot more man-to-man or kind of a combination of both?
Well, the first 6 weeks, it felt like every play was zone. It felt like everything that they were running was zone. And then, you just heard like everybody's getting mad at each other after the Patriots game. And then they go into the Baltimore Ravens game. They're running more blitzes. They're running more man coverage. It's kind of like they're actually changing and they're spicing up the playbook on defense, it felt like. And then even going to the Bengals game, you saw some man-on-man. Greg Newsome going on with Tyler Boyd and MJ Emerson going with Higgins, and it's just they're running more man, and I'm glad to see that because Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome, they're man corners. Like the only real true zone corner we have is Grady Williams, and he can't stay healthy enough to stay on the field. So
interesting, gotcha. And that's fascinating because I thought Greedy was a man-to-man guy coming out of college.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. And like we get him there, and he's like our best zone. In man coverage, he's not what we all expected.
And Greg Newsome was a zone guy in college, and now he's a man-to-man guy.
Yeah, like there's in that Bengals game last year when the Browns played them in Cincy, you can watch a few plays where he's lined up with Jamar Chase, and he just tracks him. Like he has like the smoothest like hips I've ever seen. He goes boom, boom, and then it's like he's right there, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, his movement skills coming out of Northwestern, I remember that too, because he didn't play a lot of football at Northwestern. He only played really not even a full year, but looked so impressive that even if the Browns didn't draft him in the first round, somebody else would have. So, Christian, what is your score prediction here for the Dolphins-Browns game? Dolphins are currently favored by, last time I checked, 3.5 points.
So I'm going to put a big if. On this. If Nick Chubb has more than 22 carries, the Browns win 24-21.
I had 24-21 Dolphins. So we are certainly thinking along the same lines here. Before we let you go, any maybe thoughts or questions that Browns fans or people on your podcast have had trying to get a handle on the Dolphins?
So what are your thoughts on the new head coach and like his whole offense? I know it's like statistically just fantastic. You've got Tua, who's the number one rated PFF quarterback. Tyreek's the number one wide receiver. Jalen Waddle. Do you think that's more a test to the coach, or is it the addition of Tyreek Hill to the offense?
I hate to go down the middle and hedge my bets, but it is a combo of all of it. And to me, it starts with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, though, because look, I'll tell you what I tell every other person that comes on the show is you're going to have to deal with, I don't care who you have at cornerback, Tyreek Hill and Waddle are going to be running wide open all game.
Oh, for sure.
And now on the other side of that, because of that, the Dolphins throw the ball a lot more than they should sometimes. And so some teams that they've lost to, the Jets, the Vikings, the Bengals, were able to make more big plays on defense to match what the Dolphins could do. And that's kind of where the Browns have to be when they're playing that man-to-man coverage is you're going to let up some big plays, but if you can force this offense into 2 or 3 turnovers and a lot of penalties, then the Browns certainly have a good chance to come out with a win here. And, so talent-wise, Hill, Waddle dictate matchups. Teron Armstead's been incredible when he's been on the field. Tua leads the league in passing, and they've got a 1-2 combo with Wilson and Mostert now that average almost 5 yards a carry. So in combination, all of that's hard to stop. Mm-hmm. But the Dolphins also have committed a lot of penalties. Before the Bears game, they had a string of, 3 out of 4 games where they had double-digit penalties, just continuing to beat themselves. So there's a lot of sloppiness that goes along with that. So ideally, the Dolphins against anybody can put up 30 points with what they have.
Mhm.
And it's cliche that they can't beat themselves, but that is really what it comes down to.
Gotcha.
But hey, Christian, I never say good luck to the people we're playing, but because that would be a lie. But but I really hope you enjoy the game on Sunday. And I really thank you for coming here on the FinSide, and be sure to check out their podcast, Getting Down with the Browns. They do some great work over there. And that will do it for our breakdown of the Browns matchup here. Follow Paul and I on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the FanSided Network and FinFanatic.com. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the Fin side.